Welcome to Sisters in Sobriety. Today, we are thrilled to welcome Arlina Allen. Arlina is the host of the One Day at a Time Recovery podcast. She is the founder of Sober Life School and the author of the 12-Step Guide for Skeptics. She's been sober for 3 decades and has helped countless people find a way into recovery that actually makes sense for them. Welcome, Arlina.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to talk to you. I love the 12-Step Guide for Skeptics. I love the idea. I love everything about it because I am a skeptic. So, um, for
So am
people
I,
who,
to be honest.
yeah. So for people who may not know your backstory, can you share a little bit about what brought you into sobriety in the first place?
It was a total disaster. Yeah. I mean, the sort of Cliff Notes version of it was I started drinking really young. Like my parents are very nice, but there were, some things that happened when I was really young. I experienced some sexual abuse by a neighbor. My parents divorced when I was 7. The abuse started at 5. So by the time I was 7 years old, I had like a lot going on already. And the underlying message that I got, or that my little brain decided, is that there's something wrong with me and I needed to fix that. Like I'm not good enough, not worthy. That was sort of like just low self-esteem. And I had my first drink at the age of 10. My mom had gone out on a date. My sister and I were home alone, and I decided it would be a good idea to drink some of that brown liquid in that dusty old bottle in the cabinet because I didn't really ever see my parents drink. And I got to tell you, I remember that first drink like it was yesterday, the way it burned my lips, the way that burned all the way down. But what really struck me was then the warmth spread through my whole body, right? And I didn't actually realize how bad I felt until I felt really good. Like it was like all this self loathing and self hatred that I had for myself at such a young age. All of that was suddenly lifted. And I was just left with all these good euphoric feelings. And I think the juxtaposition of those two feelings, the relief that I felt from having ingested alcohol was so profound that I was like, "Oh, this is the answer." Right? And I didn't I'm obviously not gonna be a daily drinker at 10 years old, but by the time I was 14, I was, drinking semi-regularly, like, before school. I started smoking weed, and then it just escalated from there to the point where I was 25 years old, and I was always had, like, 3 jobs. I was always, like, super high functioning, um, but it was like this I would have these and I was like a binge drinker, so I didn't drink every day, but when I drank to blackout. Right, and I was that girl that was, like, the puker, right? Like, if I used to say that if I didn't have splash marks on my shoes, it wasn't a good time. Like, I just turned everything into I know, isn't that gross? Turn
Yes.
everything turn everything into a joke, but, by the time I was 25, I was drinking men twice my size under the table. I had a really high tolerance. I had very risky behavior. I was drunk driving. I was sleeping with married men. I was doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And I just hated who I was. And through a series of events, I was working as a sales rep for a transportation company, and all my clients were these guys in like the shipping and receiving department. We'd go out to lunch and stuff. And 2 of my customers, Mitch and Randy, they didn't know each other, but neither of them drank and they were both in the program. And I started asking questions and, sharing stuff that was going on in my life. And they were breaking up little bits of wisdom from the 12-step program. They were like, "Well, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're gonna keep getting what you're getting." And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. I was like, "What?" I was like, that was like mind blowing to me. And I think because I didn't like who I wanted to be anybody else but me. They were like, "Come to these meetings and all you have to change is everything." I was like, "Sign me up." I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, what?" So I started going to these meetings and then that was when I was 25 years old. I'm 56 now, 31 years later, I'm still practicing the principles and going to some of those meetings and being of service. And doing the deal, and it's been a wild ride. I can't imagine what my life would have been like had I continued on that path, but it was just one of those things where I just crashed and burned early. That's all that happened, and I just wanted to be somebody else, so that kind of worked in my favor.
So yeah, those little pearls of wisdom. My brother got sober way before me, and I remember him just like dropping these little like nuggets and being like, "Ah, that's amazing." But still, though, I will say when it came down to it, the version I saw from the program that he was working was not something I could connect with. So even when I got sober, I really held on to those little like nuggets, and he would still continue to drop them. And I would say so much of my sobriety is based on AA principles without having like a formal AA connection. So what motivated you? And I'm hoping it's someone like me motivated you to write the 12-step guide for skeptics. And so, yeah, what was there a disconnect for you also?
Well, so the funny thing is like when I got sober and I started going to meetings, they were saying stuff that I was like, absolutely not. Like they kept talking about God, and I was like, nope, me and God broke up a long time ago. Like I grew up in a religious household, and I was like, nope, we're not doing that anymore. Because I spent my entire childhood begging God to fix me, make me different, and I wasn't, and I just got hopeless. And I felt a sense of betrayal, you know? Plus, I'm a feminist at heart kinda, and there was, like, a lot of stuff that didn't I was like, nope." Um, so I had a bit of a religious trauma, you know? So when they were, like, talking about God, I was all, uh." And this girl goes, "Oh," like, I shared it with her. I was like, This is what this is. I'm not gonna be able to do it." And she was like, "Oh, that's not a thing." She's like, "When they say God, they just mean, like, a higher power, like 2 of us together is a higher power. Combined energy is a higher power than you alone." I was like, "Okay." She's like, "Just start with that. That's not a thing. Don't worry about it. But by the way, it's not religious, right? There is a difference between religion and spirituality." And I did not know that. And that was a really important distinction for me when I first got sober because I couldn't get behind the dogma. There was like the dogma of religion. This way is the only way. If you don't believe in this way, you're going to go to hell. It doesn't matter if you were born on the wrong side of the planet. Sorry. You know what I mean? So, but they were like, well, what is it? And she's like, here, this is what we're going to do. Make a list of all the things you would want God to be. And so I was like, okay, like energy, the a spirit of love, all knowing, all powerful, loves me. I'm the favorite, obviously.
Yeah.
Like, that's my concept, father figure kinda it was explained to me like someone said, "Oh, it's like Father God, Mother Earth." And I was like, "Okay, I could get behind that." Nature. Anyway, she's like, "Okay, now make a list on the other side of the things that you don't want it to be." And I was like, judgmental, condemning, all that stuff. She goes, "Okay, let me see your piece of paper." So I handed it to her. She tore it in half, and she gave me the good side. She's like, "Just start with this." And I was like, "That's it?" She's like, "That's it." And I was like, "Okay, hurdle accomplished." And she's like, the basic thing, it's take what you like, leave the rest." And I met people who were able to explain things that made sense to me. And so I was like, "Okay, good." So I am a skeptic, and so I was confronted with these ideas of what does an alcoholic mean? What do you mean I'm powerless? I'm powerless. I said, "I have, like, 3 jobs. I'm making money. I'm
So,
powerless." And she'd go, "Oh, no, 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 over alcohol." And I'd be like, "Oh, oh." Do you know what I mean? It's like I kept getting, I was, like, offended and confronted by ideas that challenged my belief system. Right? And I would get defensive and offended, and then I heard this thing, but Gloria Steinem was famous for saying, "The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off." And so I was like, "Okay, noted." So when I'm pissed off about something, that is my cue to lean in, right? And so right? So when you lean in and you start questioning assumptions, you dig a little deeper, it's like, "Well, what does this really mean?" And can we redefine some of the words that we were using, like the word alcoholic? Oh, what does that mean? A lot of people are like, oh, it's shamey. I don't want to use a shameful label. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, an alcoholic is in the rooms of 12-step recovery. It means that someone who was willing to be honest, open-minded, and willing, somebody who's practicing the principles of honesty, integrity, courage. It's like, what's bad about that? Like, these are people who have stood at the abyss and found the courage to ask for help. That is the definition of a badass to me. Like, most people are not willing to do that. Most people are not willing to truly confront themselves and with that honest self-examination. So to me, it's I learned to redefine certain words so that it empowers me, right? I hear a lot of complaints like, "Oh, it feels so disempowering." And at the surface level, I totally get it. But with a little bit of context and perspective, it's like, "Oh, it's the opposite of that. It's actually super empowering." So there was little shifts like, and then in the book, I talk about, what meetings and the program are two separate things. Meetings are where you go get other people's ideas of, how they think about the steps. But the program is actually doing the homework, the writing exercises of the steps. That's the program. And so people go to meetings and they get offended or they don't like it or for whatever reason, and they go to one meeting and they're like, "Nope, not for me." And it's like, did you know that there's like 10 different kinds of meetings? Speaker meetings, women's meetings, big book meetings, 12-step, 12 and 12 there's all kinds of meetings. And so if you don't like that one, you could just go to a different one. And it's like going to the gym and being like, "Oh, I don't like the treadmill, so it's not for me." Right? Like, it's so
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I embrace the term alcoholic. That is not that common anymore, though, for people to embrace it, especially when we have like sober curious. And now it's like, don't say addict, say person who is suffering with substance use disorder. And so, but I agree with you that when I take the label back for myself, it feels different. If I was walking down the street and someone's like, "Hey, you're an alcoholic," like I'd be like, "Fuck off." You know what I mean?
yeah, hey, because 'cause they're probably my
Yeah.
people. I'd be honest.
But yeah, so about the labels, how do you feel? I feel like more and more people are pushing away the alcoholic label and saying, yeah, that it's stigmatized. We need to move off it. How do you feel about like sober curious? How do you feel about like the
It's
other kind of labels that are popping
I
up?
love all the labels.
Me too.
I love all the labels. I even love alcoholic, because those are the
Cool.
people that are embracing that are people that are going to 12-step because it's like, "Oh god, I
Yeah.
finally have like a diagnosis. Now I can identify what it is that's wrong with me." It's like, phew. So, I'm just all about let's just meet people where they're at. Right? If you wanna say you have a substance use disorder, perfect. If you wanna say you're sober
Yeah.
curious, perfect. If you wanna say you're it's all good. It doesn't matter. Like, that is not what's important. What's important is you've identified part of your personality, part of your identity, which is really tied to we were gonna talk about the default mode network, and we can talk about what that is, but
Yeah.
it's, very closely tied to identity. So I had an identity of being like this party girl. I had this image of who I thought I was, right? I was fun, I was crazy, I'm fun to be around. And then I got sober and I was like, "Uh-oh, who am I gonna be now?" Right? I'm gonna be bored. But that's just not who I am, right? So I had to reshape my identity and redefine what the word alcoholic meant so that it was empowering and something that I could embrace. So that's just what worked for me. In the rooms of 12 step, people really embrace that label. And people outside of the rooms do not. And I've seen both of those work. So that's all that matters. And when I say work, I mean that eventually we're able to stop drinking and live happy, productive, thriving lives. That's what I mean by like it doesn't matter what you use, it works.
I mean, I 100% agree. I love all the labels.
Yeah.
I do. I think whatever works. So one thing about the program or about is that you like there is a really strong stance for abstinence.
Oh,
So
it's
if you
all about
are
abstinence.
it's all about
It's
abstinence. And
all
so if you
like it's not
yeah.
that is not a gray area. It's all about abstinence.
Yeah, and so it is not a place for the sober curious necessarily to go. How do you look at this, the all or nothing? For me, it works, right? Because I'm an all or nothing addict.
Yeah.
Like if I tested out having a glass of wine with dinner tomorrow night, like next week I would be at a strip club doing shots. You know what I mean? And so I would play my tape forward
Yeah.
and I know where it ends up. But for those people that are in more of that gray area, how can AA or can AA work for them?
Well, so the goal of AA is to help you stop drinking.
And you work the steps. So if we separate the two, right? If we say like AA and then
Yeah.
we talk about the 12 steps.
Yeah. No, I have worked those steps many, many, many times. It's like second nature to me, so I kinda do them all like, all the steps all the time kind of a thing.
I meant more like, can you work them being sober curious?
I mean, you can. Like, there's no rule that you can't. Like, the thing is that there are no rules, but AA is geared towards abstinence because for people like me, I can't moderate. Like, I tried moderation, it did not work for me. I tried moderation for 2 years,
Me
and
too.
I couldn't do it, and I was a pretty emotionally low bottom drunk. Like, I didn't lose everything, but I hated myself. I was contemplating suicide in my darkest moments. I wasn't gonna be able to do that forever. I couldn't live in that painful space forever. So for me, I finally was desperate enough and willing enough to be like, "I have got to stop, and I need help." And so, AA is good for that kind of person where they're like, "But if you wanna moderate and go to meetings and learn the wisdom, learn the practices that help people stay so practices like prayer, meditation, journaling, community service, all that stuff. You could do it. It's drinking is frowned upon there, so that's probably not the best place for you. I know there's other places like She Recovers for women that they're more tolerant of, moderation, but AA is really all about abstinence, right? So and for people like me, that I needed hard boundaries. I really needed
Yeah.
I don't do well with gray areas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so speaking of us, who will have a drink today and then next week be probably in like a jail cell, like you said, and I did too, I identified so strongly with that person that I was when I was drinking. And so the identity shift was so profound. So, when we talk about the default mode network, can you explain it in simple terms and then how it kind of relates to that personal transformation?
Yeah, so interesting because I really didn't know anything about neuroscience until, like, the last 10 years probably, maybe even probably about the last 10 years, I started really getting curious about neuroscience, and I came across this idea of the default mode network, and it's really all it is, it's your brain's operating system, right? And in practical terms, we make decisions emotionally and justify logically. Right? And so what are these feelings? Where are they coming from? Well, your subconscious mind, that's what holds all of your beliefs about yourself and the world. Those are all established by the time you're about 8 years old. And if you think about it, it's like, oh, the first time I heard that, I was like, oh, I would never let an 8-year-old make decisions, like major decisions about myself and the world because they don't have context and perspective, right? And what happens is like when you're young, you're growing up, you go to mom, you're like all excited and happy to share something, and she turns around, snaps, and yells at you, and you walk away hurt. It's like, oh, I did something wrong. I'm bad. It's like we made up a story, right? And that's what happens when you're young is we make up stories explaining the world. And those become our beliefs, and those are all subconscious. So, like me, I had really low self-esteem. I didn't think I was good enough, smart enough. I didn't deserve, attention and nurturing. I had a very strong belief that I was on my own. Like, no one's coming to help, I have to figure it out. And so, that was part of my default. Like, I come back to, like, a default, and you can think of it like, you can exercise every day for a year and be in great shape, but if you stop exercising, your body goes back to factory setting. So, like, our
Yeah.
emotions are like that too. So, I do lots of work, prayer, meditation, journaling, exercise. I do all this stuff to take care of my physical, mental, spiritual health, right? But if I stop doing that, I go back to default, which is not good enough, low self-esteem, and then I make decision when I'm making decisions from that place, I always lose. I always come out short, right? I don't feel good about myself. So I need a coping strategy like alcohol, shopping, men, whatever, right? To deal with the distress that I have. And so in sobriety, when you take away the alcohol, there's a couple of things that's happening to rewire your brain and reshape your default mode network. The first thing is when you remove alcohol, alcohol is one of those things that increases your baseline of cortisol when you're not drinking. Meaning you can drink, if I drank last night, then today when I'm not drinking, my baseline of cortisol is going to be higher. Cortisol is the stress hormone. So I'm anxious, I'm edgy, I'm not the loving, kind person that I want to be. By the end of the day, I'm all like super stressed out and I'm going to want to reach for something that's going to relieve that, which would be alcohol. And then it starts this vicious cycle. And that's reinforcing that, and then I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, what's interesting about neuroplasticity, which is the ability to learn, basically, it happens at night when you're sleeping. When you're in deep REM sleep, that's when your brain goes through this process of connection and pruning. So, you've heard that saying, the thoughts that fire together wire together, neurons that fire together wire together. So
Yeah.
keep having the same thoughts over and over again. You're strengthening those bonds. But let's say you learned something during the day and you get these little bits of wisdom and you're like, oh, that's amazing. When you go to sleep at night, if your sleep is disrupted, those lessons are not sinking in because your brain is not able to literally strengthen the connections. Right? Your brain will prune the connections that are not being used. But if you're constantly anxious and having these negative repeating thoughts, what you think about, you bring about. It's just a negative cycle. So removing alcohol and starting to feed your brain good things, taking different action, exercise, like all the somatic things, that is what starts to reprogram your brain, and the default mode network is very closely tied to identity. So when you're getting sober, you're actually developing. Your true self is emerging. I always feel like recovery is about recovering your whole self, like the good parts and the bad, but with compassion and love for yourself, right? That's when it all works together, right? Your brain really needs a period of time of healing is really what that is. You go back to homeostasis where you're in balance. But when you're drinking and you're behaving bad, you're not being the person you want to be, you start to feel bad about who you are. And it just becomes this default, right? And we just keep having these same behavior patterns and these same cycles over and over again. So sobriety is really about taking different action, invoking the law of cause and effect so that you get a different result.
So, do we all have is there a universal default, or do we all have a different, like, default mode? So how does that work? Like, are we going in and messing it up by drinking?
For
And
sure.
there's a Okay, so yeah, do we all have our own default? That is what we're working from.
Such a good question because it really opens the door to this discussion of, like, there was a book, Dr. Bruce Perry, he did hundreds of brain scans on children. And in the title of the book is What Happened to You, which is a slight do you know this book? It's a slight reframe on what's wrong with you.
Yes, it blew my mind. It concerns me how many people told me I needed to read it,
Mm.
when it came out, because it was, like, with Oprah,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so, when people were like, "You gotta read this book," I was like,
Yeah.
"What happened? What's wrong with me?" But it was yeah, it was shocking. Yeah, I would love
Well,
it
it's
if you
not
would
what's wrong
tell
with
us
you,
more about it.
it's what
What
happened to
happened
you.
to you?
Because our
Yeah.
experience, so to answer your question directly, the default mode network is
Uh,
unique to everybody because we all have unique experiences, but we all kinda have the same experiences. We have things that happen to us, stressful events. Some people have worse experiences. I'm talking like there's severe physical abuse, sexual abuse, witnessing a traumatic experience, like murder, car accident, like that's like had big T trauma, right? That will actually change the way your brain develops, the neural connections, right? And so yes, we all have a unique. However, they all sort of boil down to core wounds, which is not good enough, I'm not safe, I don't deserve love. Those are all the common outcomes. So we are the circumstances are unique, but the results are kind of the same, which lead to things like alcohol and drug addiction, or love addiction, or shopping addiction, or porn addiction, or but these are all coping strategies to deal with the trauma we experience growing up. And it could be little t trauma too, like the example I gave of mom snapping at the kid and the kid walking away. But what that does, it's like death by a million cut. Like that happens over and over and over and over again. Then we start believing that we're not good enough, that we're bad. And then how we make decisions from that place. Like we don't go for the job. We choose bad partners. And then so it shows up in different areas. So it's not just drugs and alcohol. It could be food, could be bad relationships. It tends to show up on the outside. What's happening on the outside is 100% reflective of what's going on the inside. And so if you're holding these beliefs of I'm not good enough, then your outside will definitely reflect that. And it can be kind of tricky because somebody like me who's like, I don't feel good enough on the inside, let me overachieve. So you get the stuff. And so it looks like everything's fine, but on the inside, I'm dying. Right? And for me, it showed up in relationships. Like, I had terrible relationships. I kept picking men that were, like, emotionally unavailable, right? Because I couldn't be confronted with true intimacy because I hated who I was. Like, God forbid a man show up and be like, "Okay, I'm willing to see you and hear you," and I'm like, "Ah, don't look at me." Like, I just couldn't deal, right? So I had some stuff, but it showed up in relationships, and that's really common for overachievers. They can kick ass at work, but the relationships are in shambles.
My mind is blown a little bit. I've never put that together with the, like, what happened to you with that default.
Yeah.
And then yeah, and then the result of it. And so I think what's interesting, right, about the what happened to you is they're saying the things that most significant things happen before 3 years old, right? So it's like we're not even aware sometimes why maybe the default is
Yeah.
the way it is. But so when it came to you, if one of the ways that it showed up for you was in relationships and not wanting to be seen or being able to be intimate in a certain way, how did you fix it?
Well, when I got sober, I was so this is kind of funny. Like, I'm a rule breaker, right? They say don't get into a relationship in your first year of
Yeah.
sobriety. Well, my husband and I have been together for 31 years. I've also been sober for 31 years, so we started dating when I was about 5 months sober, but we were practicing the principles of the program, and I feel like that's why we stayed together all this time because we would do something and this is my case for everybody should do the steps because it's a writing exercise to deconstruct, like, your negative beliefs, your hidden negative beliefs that you can't identify. Like, this is a very practical, pragmatic writing exercise that deconstructs all that. And one of the steps, step 4, is a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves, right? So I had a sponsor and I'd go to her and I would get in a fight with my husband, Bob. And I'd be like, Bob, we did this and we did that. And she'd be like, well, I don't sponsor him. I was like, what? Bitch. And I wanted her to just co-sign I wanted her to validate my anger, and she wasn't gonna do that. She's like, "Well, let's just break it down. What specifically are you resentful at? Like, what did he do? What was it the specific thing?" And so we get really specific about the thing because it wasn't like, "He did this and that and this and that." It was just like, "No, no, no. What specifically was it? And then how were you affected? My self-esteem, my emotional security, financial security." I'm gonna give you a little scenario. We went to a restaurant with another couple who had a lot of money. We were broke at the time, and the 2 guys thought it would be fun to give the waitress a big tip. I think they were just kind of flexing a little bit, whatever. And I had such sensitivity around money. That's always been a really big core issue for me. We were saving for a wedding, and, I was so pissed, and I don't remember what I said, but knowing me, I made everybody uncomfortable at the table. Like, "What are you doing?" Anyway, I was really pissed at him for trying to show off in front of this guy or whatever, And so when I went to Julie and was complaining about this, and she was like, well, what specifically was it? And I was like, well, he spent all this money. And she's like, how were you affected? It affected my financial security, my emotional security, because I had all these dreams about the wedding. If he's going to be frivolous, like blah, 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 blah. And she's okay, what was your part in it? I was like, I don't have a part in it. I wasn't the one that spent the money. She's like, well, you do have a part. Were you prideful? Is like your way the only way to get this done? Were you fearful? Did you act out of fear? Did you did you say something to make everybody uncomfortable? And I was like, oh, it's sort of like that awkward moment where you realize you're the asshole. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
shoot.
Shit.
Right. Oh, damn it. So I got clear about what my part was. I was in fear. I said things I shouldn't have said. I made everybody uncomfortable. So I was like, uh-oh. So part of that step 9. So that was like I recognized what my character defect was. I was prideful. I was feeling like everybody should act the way or he should act the way think he should act. Like he gets to live his own life, right? He's a grown ass man. But I was thinking he should behave the way I think he should behave, right? And so there was no humility there. So um, I got really clear, and then so she's like, "Okay, now I got clear on what they call character defects, which a lot of people don't like to hear, but we can just think of them as like shortcomings or everybody has mistakes they made." And I was being, and the thing is that instincts out of balance to the extreme are what is called a character defect. That's all that is, right? And we've all been there.
Instincts.
Out of
Yeah, it's
balance.
funny. That is one of the like one part of the language that is hard for me too, like defects of character and like moral
Like,
failing. Yeah,
well,
but wait,
what's
so
our
actually, if we
girls?
could just pause and you could explain it, that would be great.
Yeah, yeah, so there's character assets and character defects, and we typically focus on defects more because that's what causes us problems. Like my pridefulness out of balance turned into control. Like I was controlling out of a place of fear that I wasn't going to get what I want or that I was going to lose something that I had. I was afraid I was going to lose the money, wasn't going to get the wedding that I wanted, right? So I was asserting control. And so that's where it became out of balance and I became like upset, like I was angry. And like anger is considered a character defect. It's actually a natural feeling, but when it turns into rage and control and becomes abusive, that's when it's a character defect. It's nothing personal. It's like we all have that. It's just a personality trait. It's I need to identify this is the part of the like they say that we get sober through how. This is how we get sober. Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. So I had to be honest with myself. This is where the truth sets you free, but first it will piss you off. I was like, we have to humble ourselves a little bit and see things as they are. I did say something that was hurtful. I was controlling. I was afraid as well. And so I had a sponsor that gave me a lot of compassion. She's like, oh, honey, you were afraid. And this is why your character was out of balance. You became prideful and angry because you were afraid. But and it's getting down to root causes and conditions. And so she because once you acknowledge, like, oh my gosh, I was such a jerk, I would instantly go into like a shame spiral. And she's like, no, 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 we're not doing that. You're a human being. You have these fears that up until now you had no way of resolving to resolution, no real practical way of dealing with. So we're gonna deal with all that. But let's just take responsibility for our behavior, right? And acknowledge that I was prideful and angry. That's a character defect. Those are character defects, right? She also explained that I had character asset, right? I also had all these loving character traits, and she'd always remind me of that too, to counterbalance. But yeah, it is not palatable to be like, yeah, I have character defects. But girl, who doesn't? We are human.
Yeah.
Right? And so I just had this thing of perfectionism, which came from my low self-esteem. I was overcompensating with perfectionism. So no wonder I was offended by this idea of character defects. Like, you're telling me I'm defective? Well, kind of. Like, I'm behaving in ways that I don't want to behave. What else? You can call it whatever you want, but it's not good. And I don't like it. And I don't want to be like that. I want my true, authentic, loving self to come out. But I also need to have compassion for my angry, prideful self too, because that's also human, right? Like recovery is about recovering your whole self, the good parts and the bad. We have to love ourselves well. You can't hate yourself well. You have to love yourself well. So I started identifying what parts of me needed compassion, and those were the character defect parts. But once I was able to take responsibility for my behavior, which meant that I would go to Bobby at the time, I would go to him and say, "Oh my gosh, I worked with Julie, I did my step work, and I realized how my behavior came from I was fearful, I was controlling. I am so sorry for how I made you feel. I apologize for embarrassing you. What can I do to make it right? And by the way, if you don't have an answer at this very second because you haven't had a chance to process this, you can come back to me later and let me know." Right? And he by the way, he does all the same thing with his guys, right? He's practicing the principles of he's got a sponsor and he's doing the same thing. And so that's how we've had a happy marriage for 31 years. I mean, we've had some rocky times. That's life, right? We've had some really tough times, to be honest. But we've been able to work it out because we had this process of accepting personal responsibility. My happiness is my responsibility. It's not his job. Do you know what I mean?
Do. Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about perfectionism. Do you ever, and I know I do a little bit, do you ever burn out on recovery?
Oh my God.
Like, there are days where it's just like, I just want to be in a blanket, like watching Netflix, like eating ice cream. Like, I don't want to do recovery today.
I love
Like, I don't want to journal.
I
Yeah.
absolutely give myself permission to check out. And I check out in ways that are not as harmful to me anymore,
Yes.
right? I love me some TikTok. I love to, you know, I took all the other apps off my phone, but that was my ride or die. Actually, what's funny is I go extreme. I'm extreme in this department. I like to have the TV on. Sometimes I have my laptop in my lap and my phone in my hand.
I will be online shopping and watching Instagram reels. That's my like recipe to
Yeah,
get out
but
of burnout.
that is like a red flag for me. Like I know I've identified what my red flags are, and it's like, okay, well, after I'm done with my 8 hours of scrolling and resting and burning out, what is going on with me? What? Because I
Yeah.
tend to be like a workaholic. That's something that's part of my
Yeah.
default. Right? So left unchecked, I will just work myself endlessly. I forget that I have needs. I forget that I have boundaries. And we think of boundaries a lot of times as we set boundaries, we teach people how to treat us, which is like relationship management, which is really appropriate. I forget that I need to set boundaries with myself. I need to have a hard stop on the end of my day. Otherwise, I'll work till midnight, and I'll burn out. And I burn out on my burnout typically shows up in the areas of codependency, like overgiving. I will do service like nobody's business. I have a podcast, I'm a coach, I do all this stuff. I give, I give, I give, I give. I consume content with the intention of this is gonna help my clients, it's gonna help others, it's gonna you know what I mean? So I totally overgive and I burn out. And I burned out over the summer. I put together this big course and I launched it and it did not go well. And I was devastated.
Yeah.
I was devastated. I worked, so I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning. I hired a business coach. I hired a website. Like I did all this stuff. I was so excited, put my heart and soul, and it crashed and burned. And I was so devastated, but I had not been taking care of myself all along the way. So I was like, you know what? We're going to do self-care summer. And I did have clients. I kept doing the podcast, but I didn't do anything else. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do all the self-care stuff. I had a spreadsheet. I mean, so insane. I was like, I'm going to do two-way prayer journaling. I'm going to do morning pages journaling. I'm going to do meditation twice a day. I'm going to work out. I'm stretching. I'm whatever. So I had like all this stuff that I was going to do. And I realized I was creating another problem.
Yes. I can hear it already.
Yeah, it's easy. I have so many tools now. I could easily spend all day doing quote unquote self care. But all that is doing is reinforcing the idea that I'm not okay. That's all that's doing. And so I've decided to put a boundary around that. It's like, okay, you get a half an hour, do some journaling, meditate, a half an hour, and then go about your day. And so instead of I'm a figure it out kind of girl, that's my default. So I've dropped down to my heart and be like, okay, trying to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. That's step 3, as I understand God. Like, so now I'm trying to be, now it's finding fun fall. So now I'm sort of operating at this place of being fully present in the moment. I ask for guidance from the universe, God, whatever. It's like, what would you have me do today? And I'm trying to operate from a place of what brings me joy. Right? To be honest, I love being in service. I love sharing. I love talking,
Mhm.
obviously, podcast host.
Okay.
Right? I love being in service, but I have boundaries around it so I can go the distance. Right? So I'm coming out of my burnout mode and I'm feeling better about myself and what I do and my worth and all that. But it's a struggle. Even though that I've been sober a long time, I still have my same default. And if I'm not careful, I can easily fall into the trap and deceive myself, thinking I rationalize and justify my workaholic behavior that will lead me to a very dark place. And I can still do that. Just because I'm sober doesn't mean my life is perfect. But I do have community. My husband's a good person, like a sounding board for me. He'd be like, "Hey, have you eaten today? Have you taken a break? Maybe you should put a backstop on your day, like, maybe log off at 6, 5 or 6 or whatever." So, I have people in my life who'll be like, "Hey, what's going on with you?" You know what I mean?
I was
So
just gonna ask you, what are the signs that for you that you're heading towards burnout? Is it sleep? Is it nutrition? What are those signs that you are starting to get more attuned to that it's like, okay, wait, I think I'm sliding
yeah,
into
it's
this?
such a subtle tick, right? It's just like these and that's why we don't notice it because it's subtle,
Mm.
right? But, for me, it's like working too much. I start getting resentful. It's my thinking. It's like my thinking starts to get negative. Typically, I start feeling bad about myself, right? I'm not smart enough. I'm not talented enough. I'm just not enough. And that is old, old, old programming from I was 5 years old, right? That's my default. And so self boundaries are really important for me, but it does show up in it shows up in some sort of resentment or jealousy and envy. Nobody likes to talk about that. But I get jealous and envious. And I feel like jealousy is closely tied to like love or something like that. So I don't have that. But
Like a romantic thing.
romantic,
Yeah, yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant. But envy, I get really envious of other people's success and resentful. Like, where's I get, into this mode of, like, entitlement, like, "Where's mine?" I'm not and then it's like, "I'm not good enough, that's why, it's my fault, I'm not good." Do you know what I mean? So, like, that's like
Yes. What do
and
you mean? That's like yeah, this is my life's work is to figure that out.
yeah, that's how it starts to show up, and we can laugh about it now, like, see, this is what recovery is about, like, I tell you that I'm envious and envious of other women's success, which is, like, super shamey and
Yeah.
embarrassing and whatever. I actually don't feel ashamed and embarrassed, but because that's here it is, like, that's me. I get, like, entitled, like, "I've been sober for 31 years, how come no one's listening to me?" I mean, like, that's, like, what goes on in my head, and then I
Literally did this yesterday because
oh,
I'm writing my memoir of the last few years,
right.
and
That's
I'm writing
hard.
it. It's hard,
Hard.
and I'm starting to hate it. I'm
Yeah.
on the 2nd or 3rd draft, right? And so I know it, and I really liked it when I finished it. And I'm working with an editor, and I see other people's memoirs come out, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, mine's never gonna get published because mine sucks, and I
Yeah.
suck. And so literally I did this yesterday afternoon. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and it
See,
is hard to admit. Yeah.
this is the beautiful thing about connecting with somebody else who gets you. Like, in my mind, I'm like, "I'm the only one that thinks this way. I'm a piece of shit, blah, blah, blah." And then I tell you, and you're like, "Yeah, me too. And I like you." Right? Like, immediately, we were, like, super chatty. I was
Yes.
like, "Oh, I like her." Well, I'm not gonna judge you for feeling that way, right?
Mhm.
And so there's this idea of that other people are just mirrors. You can't love or hate something about somebody else unless it's something you love or hate about yourself. I kind of shorten it down to if you spot it, you got it, right? Because
Yes.
we can't recognize something unless we possess it, right? But those are typically character traits that we like bury Like, I don't like people who are condescending, so I tend to overcompensate and just try to be super gracious and loving and accepting. But there is a part of me that's super judgy, right? I don't like that part.
Yeah.
Really condescending.
No.
I do not like that. I don't like her, but I have to love her because she's trying to protect me in some way. So it's a total 180 of my instinct, right? But this is the beautiful thing is this is how I grow. This is how I continue to work with my default is I share what's really going on with me. I'm honest, open-minded, willing. And then I receive some love and support and validation, right? And then I don't feel so bad. There's something about siphoning off the crazy that helps
Yeah.
me makes me keep going, right? That's what I need. I need to be able to keep going and not get
Yeah.
caught up in entitlement. I heard this yesterday, I was, watching Elizabeth Gilbert's book launch is going on. She was on my
Oh,
podcast. I got to got to have dinner with her at this event and invited her on my podcast, and she came, so I love her. I love her. And she was talking.
I heard this book is crazy.
Yeah, but,
Oh, yeah, I mean, it gets into some really interesting
I'll
stuff,
wait.
I
I'm just
think.
waiting for my Audible
Yeah.
credit to renew.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I listened to her last one actually too on Audibles. Okay, I do have a question because I struggle with this like crazy, which is and since I got sober more because before I could run at like million miles an hour and not feel that sort of burnout, or I would just kind of like crash with a bottle of wine and then like wake up the next day. So,
Yeah.
how do you help your clients and yourself when they say like I really want to do big things but I don't wanna burn out or sacrifice my health or relationships. How do you resolve that tension?
Yeah, it's so interesting because when we think of recovering and doing these practices, we think of adding things on when really
Yeah.
it's more about taking things away, right? So, people like us, we're just like doing too much. And so it's like, okay, let's look at the calendar. People oftentimes when I work with somebody, I'll be like, what are your values? What are your goals? We list all those out. And then it's like, okay, let's look at your calendar. Does your calendar reflect what you just told me? Right? Do you know what I mean? If you're working all hours, is family really important? Like, how often are you sacrificing family time or time with your friends? Are you putting your own needs aside? Are you working out, taking time to meal plan or whatever? Do you know what I mean? It's like what, and so a lot of times it's like, okay, maybe we need to do a time audit. Maybe we need for a week or two to do a time audit where you're tracking how are you actually spending your time? There's this idea in some of the 12-step programs about time drunkenness. Like people check out on social media, they waste time just doing whatever, right? And so that is actually time that could be spent working towards your goals. So what we're talking about is taking away things so that you have the energy to accomplish what is actually important to you. And it's like when you do a time audit, we look at your calendar, it's like, well, so we talk about priorities, but the word was actually intended to be singular. So what is your priority? Right? And if you're getting sober, sobriety has to be the priority. That has to come first before anything, which means that we do all the self-care stuff first. Whereas if you're in workaholic mode and ambition mode, self-care is typically last. So it's about flipping it. And if we can shift our perspective of if we do this, then we will actually reach our goals faster. That's easier to get on board with, right? But it's so easy to dismiss. It's 10 minutes of meditation. Is that really going to do anything? 10 minutes of journaling. Is that really going to do anything? Like it's so easy to dismiss. And I have this fun little analogy when it comes to doing stuff like that in the morning. So if you can imagine waking up with a pitcher, no lid, just a pitcher full of red Kool-Aid, it's full. If you don't pour that out, then if someone bumps into you and that Kool-Aid spills, it's red, it stains, it's sticky, it's hard to clean up. That's kind of like the practices of prayer, meditation, journaling, exercise in the morning. That's like pouring it out so that when you walk through your life and you're not like bumping into people, you're not creating a big mess. Like If I don't do my self-care in the morning, I'm edgy. I have a sharp tongue, I'm quick-witted. I will say some shit I regret. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I will say something that I regret. So I have to pass, and words are like toothpaste, once they come out of the tube, there is no putting it back. Once you spill that Kool-Aid, that stuff stains. So when you take the time to pour it out in the morning, you can go out through your day. So if someone does bump into you, it's not gonna it's not gonna spill out everywhere. And I have I forget that sometimes, and I pay the price. And in the terms of something painful happens, and I go, "Oh, that's right. I remember. Oh, that's right. I didn't take care of myself." And I go back to, but it doesn't, like, something bad doesn't happen every time. Right? That's like drinking. It's like,
Yeah,
is your drinking a problem? It's like, well,
yeah.
not every time, but every time something bad happened, I had been drinking. You know what I
So
mean? So we just sort of take those lessons and apply it to life. So you can be ambitious, you can focus and accomplish a lot, but you don't have to do it at the price of self-sacrifice. And really, that's self-betrayal. Right? So, my girlfriends and I have this saying, "Do not betray her." We have that little girl inside who wants love, acceptance, we call it lava. Love, attention, validation, and acceptance. My little girl wants some lava. And when I don't take care of myself and I behave badly, like, it's hard for me to give that love and attention, validation to myself. I knew better. I've been sober a long time. I shouldn't be making these mistakes still. But that's not how it works, right? It's like, I'm human, I'm gonna forget, you know? So,
I love that. I love the lava. That's gonna stick with me.
that is good. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So, Arlina, what is next for you? I know you talked a little bit about the courses. What is going on? What is new and exciting?
So, I'm sort of in this phase. I actually don't know. Like, I'm in this phase of being really open and just kind of surrendering to the universe. I'm trying to follow this inner compass that I have, and my compass is the direction points in the direction of love. Like, what is gonna bring me joy? There are these ideas of, like, I feel like I should do certain things, right? But those things don't typically bring me joy. Like, I will work myself to death, That's not working for me. So, I'm trying something new where I'm like, what brings me joy? What's fun? What is in alignment with who I want to be, or what, my higher power wants me to be. I'm allowing my authentic self to emerge, and I'm doing some fun things. Like, my mom died a few years ago, and after she died, I needed a new hobby. I started making soap. It's just like art therapy, kind of. Yeah. And pretty soon, like, listen, I'm obsessive about everything. So I had hundreds of bars of soap, and I was like, I need to get rid of all this stuff. So I started selling it on a Shopify account. So that's like my fun. Like, I like to
Yeah.
do things. Like, I'm a workaholic, right? So now I'm just channeling it into something that brings me joy, something that's fun and lighthearted. It's like, really doesn't have a purpose. Like, it's not a
Yeah.
money-making adventure. It's just for fun. I love doing it. So I'm still working, but I'm also allowing myself to do things that I think are fun and things that bring me joy. So I'm really focused on, how can I cultivate more joy in my life? Because that is not my default. My default
Yeah.
is grind it out, hustle, figure it
Yeah.
out, all that is my default. But, I'm 56 years old. It's like, maybe I should start thinking about enjoying my life sometimes.
Yeah, I'm going through the same thing. I'm doing stuff with epoxy resins. I'm making trinket boxes. Really cute. I'm gonna have like 50 trinket boxes that each trinket box is gonna need its own trinket box to be in. But no, but I get that, right? It's channeling something that I never got to do really when I was younger. I feel like it wasn't, I don't know. It's really nice. I'm also going on a true crime cruise on Thursday.
Really?
There's like 4 true crime podcasts, and they are hosting a cruise
Oh
to the
my.
Dominican, and so I'm doing that. Just something I would never have done, but it's about cultivating joy, and not everything has to have a purpose.
You know what's so funny is this is a really common thing. People get sober and they're like, "Oh my god, my life is over. I'm never gonna have any fun." And I was like, "Oh, that's not
Oh,
true. Like,
no.
we have so much fun." So, on my website, I have a free guide. It's like how to have sober fun. And it's just
Yes.
this list of a bazillion things that you can do to experiment, like, what is fun? And it's so funny. It's like, okay, you just make a commitment to try one new thing every month. What if you found one thing every 6 months? That means twice a year you found a new hobby that you didn't think you would ever. It's like you don't really know until you try. It's like run the experiment. That's something that I learned in 12 step. And because I'm a skeptic, it's like people would present information and I'm like, you don't have I had someone tell me you don't have to believe them. Run the experiment for yourself, have your own experience,
So
and then decide, right? That's why
yeah.
I love 12 step. It's all about take what you like and leave the rest, but it's all we
Yeah.
need practical experience, and so, when it comes to having fun, it's like they have to try some weird like, go line dancing, go to a car show,
So
like, go to a craft fair, walk around in Hobby Lobby for an hour. I remember walking around Hobby Lobby with my mom, she goes, "I don't know how anybody can be bored." That was her thing.
not be bored at a Michael's or a
Yeah,
Hobby Lobby.
you know
It's
what I
like
mean? Like
full.
yeah, so, I tried exercise, I've tried so much weird shit, I can't. Oh,
Oh,
shit.
I've tried so much weird shit.
Yeah.
Like I can't. I tried bonsai trimming.
Ooh.
I've tried pasta making classes. I have tried the weirdest shit. I've
Yeah.
taken a class for everything.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I love all that
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, we need to experiment and have a little fun in our lives because it's if you're sort of in the mode of like, I have to figure it out, then it's all about and oh, I have to heal myself and we're on this track. It's just kind of reinforcing that we're not okay the way we are. It's like, you know what?
Yes.
You know what, honey? Put it down. Just put it down for a minute.
Yeah.
Talk about recovery
Yeah.
burnout. It's like, you know what? It's too much.
Exactly.
It's too much.
Yeah. Oh, Arlina, thank you so much for coming on. This was amazing. And I know the listeners are going to love it.
Yeah, I've had so much fun talking to you. You're gonna have to come on my podcast. We're just gonna have to keep
I
the conversation going.
know. For sure.
But
Thank you. And thank you all for listening to Sisters in Sobriety. And we will see you next week.